Listen, the vibes are off. I keep having like dreams about things that like I don't want to think about. I got my time of the month, so I like built up this routine, and now I can't do the routine because I feel so tired and like off and just weird. Like, you know how like some months hit you harder and the vibes are just off and weird? So yeah, a beautiful start to February, but hey, I thought I would record one of these things to cheer me up because I love doing these. So yeah. Today we're going to be talking about anger. And this is in some ways a follow on, kind of, from what I was talking about in a recent video about the idea of like good things happening to good people, or why do bad things happen to good people, and sort of like all of that. Just have to put a little disclaimer in here because I will be talking about things in terms of like my spiritual beliefs, and I will be like talking about God and the universe and things like that. I in no way am forcing my beliefs onto you. I want everyone to feel welcome here. These are just my beliefs and my experiences that have formed my perspective. I don't care what you believe in or if you don't believe in anything. Like, this is just my video about my feelings and emotions, especially anger, and how I got to a place where I could like feel it and not be too ashamed or guilty to feel it, or not to feel so unsafe that I couldn't feel it. And these are just my perspectives on that. And hopefully it will make some kind of sense to you and help you move through feelings of anger and emotions, and hopefully help you make sense of the things that you've gone through or are going through in your own perspective. Okay, getting into it. So, I'm going to start this by admitting that sometimes I can be the biggest hypocrite ever. So, one of my biggest pet peeves of all time, and one of the things that I hate most, is when people blame everything bad on God or the universe or whatever, and they say like, why has God done this, or why did God let this happen? Because I'm like, firstly, why does people always blame bad things on God, but then they never really thank him for anything good? And secondly, I feel like the reason bad things happen is because we have free will, and sometimes we unfortunately use this free will to do bad things. And I feel like if we didn't have free will, then people would be pissed off at God for not giving us that free will and not letting us think for ourselves and learn for ourselves, even though things would maybe be better because there would be no violence and stuff. However, sometimes I can literally think the same way, and it's ridiculous because I'm over here saying like, don't blame everything bad on the universe, and then also I'm mad at the universe because, you know, they didn't stop this bad thing from happening to me. And the universe is probably like, record scratch, what? Like, Mo, you can't just like be mad at everyone else and then do the same thing. At least I'm self-aware about it. And I feel like, okay, sorry, pause again. I don't really have like a great understanding of what I really do believe in. So when I say God or the universe, I basically just mean like this sort of higher power or being or whatever, I guess. I don't really know what that means to me. I don't follow a certain religion or whatever. So yeah, anyway. So I feel like deep down, I've never really actually blamed God or the universe for bad things. Like, I've always known it wasn't their fault. And I think maybe it is easier than blaming it on humans and blaming it on other people. Like, maybe it's easier than looking at ourselves and accepting a bit of responsibility, or accepting like the harsh realities of life and accepting Mother Nature, right? Because truly horrible things happen all the time here on Earth. And maybe it's easier, and maybe it's like having a bit of closure to be like, oh, it's God's fault, rather than like, hey, some people get sick and it sucks. Or, you know, maybe it's easier to look at God and be like, why aren't you doing anything? Than asking like what we can do and looking humanity in the mirror to figure out what's going wrong, or accepting what terrible, horrendous things humans are capable of. I think I've been there a couple times where like I guess I've just had to accept that like sometimes it's just like a part of life. My granddad's ill at the moment. He's in a home. He's got dementia. Like, and sometimes I have thought like, why? Like, it just feels like life is letting him suffer, or like, why are we watching him, and what is God doing and stuff like that. And I think it's normal to have those thoughts and those questions if you are a believer, or if you're questioning, or if you're, I'm always good. Sorry, this is like so woo woo, but like, I think it's normal to have those thoughts. But like I said, deep down, I knew I like never actually blamed the universe. It was just easier than being like, sometimes this is just what happens and it sucks, but there's no one to actually blame. I think as humans, we look for closure, or we look for someone to blame, or we look for someone to take our anger, perhaps. Same with like what's going on in the world right now. It's like it's very like scary to think of what human beings are capable of, and it's so easy to become so overwhelmed and be like, well, what can I do, and stuff like that. And I think sometimes it's like it's easier to be like outraged at like, well, what's the universe doing about this, and why isn't the universe helping us, rather than being like, okay, what can I do? And then also accepting the fact that like humans can do awful things and it's not right, but it happens. I think we especially run the risk of doing this when it's someone we loved or still love, and like maybe we still have them in our lives and they've hurt us. And it's something that I used to think, because it's so easy to be like, well, why didn't the universe step in? Why didn't my guides stop them? Why didn't my, angels do anything? Stuff like that, rather than actually to admit to ourselves, like, that's a person we love and they hurt us. I promise this is going to be about anger. I'm just giving you context, okay? And it's easier to wrap our heads around this all-powerful figure being like spiteful or letting things happen and watching our pain than believing and accepting and facing the fact that actually a person that I love and trusted and was vulnerable with hurt me, broke my trust, and really just broke me a little bit. Because at the end of the day, that person's actions were their own. And even though we might still love them, and maybe they've gone through things that might explain their behaviour, it doesn't excuse their behaviour, nor does it make us feel any better or help us move on from the fact that they did that to us. And so, especially when I was in my teenage years, my latter teenage years, I would get quite angry about the way people had treated me, because I was always the nice one and I was always the quiet one. I never really picked up anyone for anything. I hate conflict and making a scene. I didn't like to make quote drama. I kind of had no sense of like self-worth, and I was a bit of a people pleaser, and by a bit I mean a lot. And maybe there was a part of myself that thought I was making it up. As I grew up, I started to learn and grow, and she got self-worth and self-love, yay. And something in me just kind of snapped, where I just felt like all the anger that I hadn't really acknowledged or known was there before, and it just came bubbling up. And I actually had worth, self-worth, and respect for myself, and I felt like, hey, I'm not gonna let that happen anymore. And and then I felt like, actually, okay, where was my protection? Why did that happen to me? Why wasn't I protected from that? How dare they do that to me? Just a lot of like, because I think it was around the time that I sort of was introduced to like the spiritual world, in the sense of like, I guess some people would call it a spiritual awakening. So in my brain didn't really compute that I had guides and angels and stuff, but then like I was like, hang on a minute, and I was kind of angry that had happened to me and no one really stepped in to protect me or make things how I thought they should have gone, or what I did need at the time and never got, kind of thing. And I was in therapy for about a year a while back, and basically my therapist at the time, she described it as like there were several sides to your brain, and one of them is like the chimp side. So this idea that we have like this chimp side of this brain, where it's like it kind of like acts on emotional impulse, and it's focused on like survival and maybe fear, and it's, you know, survival instincts and protection. So yeah, my therapist was like, your chimp side of your brain is probably going like absolutely wild right now because it's angry, it's emotional, it's remembering what has happened to you, it doesn't want that to happen to you again. So yeah, I had a new unlocked emotion. It was anger. My chimp was furious. It was awoken, screaming, throwing its shit around. It was getting ready to fight and defend itself against anyone who would hurt me. Getting ready to like literally go into battle. I've said this before in like a video ages ago, but no one listens to these. I imagine my chimp side of my brain as like the guard in, I think it was Toy Story 3, when they go, spoiler alert, they get sent to a nursery, and at night it's like all on lockdown by these other toys, and no toy is like allowed to escape the nursery. And this, like the old monkey toys that like clap their hands with the cymbals, one of those toys is like the lookout for all the security cameras, and when he sees movement or like toys escaping, he like claps and is furious to get the other toys, like the guards' attention. And that's how I like imagine my chimp side of my brain just going absolutely furious with those symbols. Those toys are escaping, they're coming for me, I'm gonna scream, I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna go into battle mode. And at the same time this was happening, I was also by this point so used to not being taken seriously, and I was so used to not being listened to, and so used to trying to see it from other people's perspectives, and, you know, having automatically just like having empathy for them. And because by now, even though I hate conflict and I hate drama, if, you know, I do try to be like, okay, I have a problem with you, like I'll try and say my bit as respectfully as I can and be honest and let's fix it. But I was so used to being met by like the person getting upset or the person getting angry or telling me it's been hard for them or apologizing and making these empty promises and then not actually changing their behavior. So it was very irritating and frustrating that I felt like I had all this anger that I was finally allowing myself to feel, but I really had no idea how to release it and feel it and deal with it in a healthy, good way. I mean, I journaled, but it only really worked up to a certain extent, and I really just wanted, I feel like at the time I didn't realise this, but I feel like at the time I really just wanted to be listened to, and I really just needed someone to like scream at. Like I was done being respectful and being like, okay, well you did this and that was bad, and then the other person like, you know, getting upset and me being like, I'm so yeah, you're right, I'm so sorry, I'll just like go away now. So, and I write scripts for these videos because if I don't have a script, I will just go off on a tangent. And as I was writing this script, it was kind of like I was realizing why I was doing certain things, and it really made me quite emotional when I realized that like, oh, I guess I felt like the only people or energy that I could like scream at which sounds so horrible, but I guess I only felt safe enough to like direct this at, you know, God or my guides or the universe or whatever we're calling it, because I didn't feel like I was going to be heard by anyone else, and I was still wanting and needing to tell someone who would listen to me, and I needed to just scream and shout and rant and tell someone who, you know, how I was feeling and how I was so angry, and, you know, how, you know, what people did to me was not okay, and actually I do have needs and they are important, and I never got my needs met. And that is something that I'm allowed to be pissed off about and angry about and upset about. And yeah, wow, like as I was writing this, I was like, wait a minute, it's all like making sense now. I guess I never realized that I was doing this at the time. And I think somehow I only really felt safe enough to shout at this, like, you know, invisible being that may or may not be there. And I knew that deep down, I knew that they were going to listen without judgment and just witness me and sit with me and and let me be a little brat and let me throw my toys out my pram and I guess like still love me and accept me afterwards without the whole like, you know, spiel of it's been hard for me too, like because like if they have been listening to me like throw that many tantrums at them. Like, gosh, yeah, it has been hard for them. But yeah, they've like sat through so many tantrums with me. Jesus needs a spa break. My guides need like a 4-month holiday. So, but yeah, I guess in a way it was like kind of a thing of like I didn't have anywhere else that I deemed safe enough to go with my anger, but I still wanted someone to listen to me. And then, I would feel so guilty afterwards and so embarrassed and so ashamed of myself. And I worried that like God or the universe hated me. And I thought I thought that they must think I was being so childish. And, I thought like, oh, my guides are going to abandon me for being a bad person. And I don't know, it was just all this like guilt of like feeling the anger and then being like, oh gosh, I can't feel the anger. And I just want to say, in my belief, and again, I'm not shoving my beliefs down your throat, this is just what I believe in. In the end, all I've ever really felt from the universe is just acceptance and love and an understanding of that what being human is just having and witnessing emotions. And I kind of feel like it's almost this like grandmotherly and grandfatherly figure type of energy, who just kind of chuckles and is like, babe, it's okay, I know you're human, I know you're going to have moments like this, and that's okay. Or sometimes it's like big sister energy, or big brother energy, like, yeah, bro, like, being human, man, like, yeah. And that being said, another thing that I want to talk about is this like cycle that I would often find myself in while experiencing feeling anger. So at first I would feel this anger and I would feel it towards the person or the situation that made me feel angry, right? Makes sense. And then I would start to feel guilty and I would start making excuses for them and I would start looking at things from their perspective and talking what they did down and maybe telling myself that I was being overdramatic. My anger would then become directed at myself because I would think, well, why did I let myself get hurt by this? It's my fault. And like, I was so stupid to not see this coming. I should have never opened up. I should have never put myself in that situation, or I should have never given my power away, or, in that moment, why didn't I stand up for myself? And just getting so angry at myself and replaying the moment or replaying the situation, being like, why did I stand for that for so long? Like, why couldn't I have just said that in the moment? I can't believe how much this is affecting me. Like, I can't believe how sensitive I'm being right now. I can't believe I let this happen to myself. And then I would start to like want to run away from that because it's like, well, you don't want to be angry at yourself. You don't want to think all these bad things about yourself. So then I would start to blame like the universe and, my guides, my angels, whatever. And I would think, well, where were they? How could they let this happen to me? Not that they have like, so much like more heavy things on their plate. I would just be like, why did they let that happen to me? And then I would realise, actually, I don't believe that. And actually, they're not meant to hold my hand through everything. Well, they are. But they're not, in the sense of, like, they're not making it easy for us, you know what I mean? They're not telling us everything we should be doing. But in the sense that they will be with us. They're just not gonna, like, tell us how to do things. Otherwise, what would be the point of life, huh? If everything was just given to us and we don't get a chance to learn, what are we even doing here? But overall, what I was trying to do here was basically not blame the person that I loved and not be angry at the person that I loved, or not even with the people that I don't love. I was still like finding it tremendously guilty being angry at them, and I don't know why. I guess I had this weird belief that like being angry made you a bad person, or being angry was like dangerous, or like you can't be angry because it's bad to be angry. It's a negative emotion, how dare you? What I've learnt though, to make a long story short, too late, is that you're allowed to be angry. Being angry does not make you a bad person, but you need to find a healthy way of expressing your anger and also just voicing and advocating like for yourself. You're also allowed to do that. And like I said, I used to hate confrontation, whereas now I'm someone that, if you do something that does upset me, I'm very quick to start a conversation. Just very respectfully and patiently expressing what they did and how it made me feel. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it doesn't work, and I just have to choose to save my energy and try to deal with my upset and my anger alone, because sometimes that's just what you have to do. Sometimes the person will react in a really grown up, respectful way and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was doing that, I'm so sorry. And sometimes it's just not going to work out like that, and that's not your fault, and you just have to deal with that in the moment. But I think the main thing overall is to remember to allow yourself to feel angry and to find ways to do so in a healthy, loving, safe way. And to try not to feel guilty for being angry, especially if you are feeling angry about someone who hurt you. Like, it's okay to be angry at someone you love. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you've stopped loving them, or that you're a bad person, or that they're a bad person. It just means they effed up a little bit, and we all do sometimes. And of course, this excludes people who you should like actually cut off and distance yourself from. Then it's like definitely okay to be angry with them. But I think you can obviously distinguish between people who won't change and who have done something so effed up, and then people who actually deserve your love and your company. And at the end of the day, if you take anything away from this, just remember that anger does not make you a bad person. Anger is an emotion that needs to be felt and dealt with, and it's okay to do that. And you deserve to feel it in a safe way and in an environment that is going to keep you safe and is going to make you feel like, hey, I can do this. And, you know, it's not going to make you feel ashamed or guilty or demonized or over dramatic. It's just going to make you feel listened to. And sometimes the only one that can make you feel like that is yourself. Sometimes, a lot of the times, the only person that is going to back you up is yourself, and that sucks. But it's also like, it's life, and you've got this. I hope that made some kind of sense. I feel like I just went on a big rant. But yeah, I hope that made sense. I hope you can feel angry now in a safe way. You know, as long as you're not harming yourself and you're not harming others. Sometimes we just need to scream at a pillow, into a pillow. And that's okay, sis. Yeah, I've been yapping for a long time now, so I will say goodbye until the next time.